Hi, this is Phoenix, and I couldn't think of a good way of explaining this in the Telegram without having masses of text and multiple diagrams. So I thought the best thing to do is just make a quick video about it. So for those people who don't know what this is a Bitcoin log growth curve, and it's usually used in statistical analysis. And in this case, it's just being used with Bitcoin. You can find it in the indicators, and you just type in Bitcoin log growth curves. So it's quite easy to find if you needed to do so. This is obviously the bottom, the top, and there's a middle line, and the bits in between are just fib numbers. I've coloured this one. I've just changed the colours: red, orange, green, and purple. But the reason I've done so is because it makes it a little bit clearer when we come back to the present day. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this 2013 and that we're seeing a repeat of 2013. And that seems like a reasonable explanation for what's going on at the moment. In fact, this one starts so it sort of peaks in April, and then, this is sort of, well, actually, we're kind of like here now. At present day, so that's to November, whereas you compare it to, we have the May dump at the moment, so you can kind of see what they're saying, and with these lines it'll become a bit more apparent a little bit later on. But the thing to note is that when we do see these runs, it tends to hit a peak, one of these lines, and it drops one level down. And in this case, which is what's similar to what's happening right now, is that it drops down to below the green and above this purple line, and then heads back up. And as I've already said, we're kind of at this zone present day. So it could mean that, we're going to see this head up again. But what is common with this pattern is that you see it rise up, and again drop down one level, and you can see that it does respect these fib lines all the way down. But what is completely common is that it heads right back down to the very bottom of this log curve. So while I'm here, I'll also point out that people often keep going on about, we're going to the moon, etc. And it's not always, well, when it does go on a full run like this, it's obviously beneficial. But what you need to look at is, this is a great example right here, which is that if you are at the bottom, these gains aren't insignificant. So they're easily tradable. I mean, that one's 80%. Again, this one's another. Well, that one's about 65, 80%. But also another thing to note is that, as you can see with this bit right here, the price action is relatively level. However, the log curve over here is right at the bottom. Over here, that's an 80% rise from where the bottom of Bitcoin would essentially be. So when you are trading in something like in this zone, it's kind of beneficial when you're here, rather than being sort of up here and not knowing where it's going to go. Because you could lose vast amounts as it comes down. So that's just another point I wanted to make. But again, now we see another run that's picking up, and this one's around 2018. And again, this is a great example because it goes down from the bottom, and it hits its green line, and then you see a drop down to one level, back up to the level above, and then again one level down, two levels up, and then it takes off. But again, you see it come back down, and it heads back to this area, and again another short run. And right here we've got what happened with COVID. So this is quite significant, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But let's just get this up. Right, so this is kind of what I was talking about a minute ago with the with it hitting the top of this red. I mean, it didn't quite hit the top of this red, but it's near it, and then it heads down below this kind of orange line, below the green, into the purple, and then bounces back up, and then heads up again to this orange line. The thing that's significant about this is that even though this is technically a higher high, I mean, it is a higher high, but you can actually see that that this is one level down, and that's what's actually quite unique about this case right here. It doesn't really happen anywhere else, where we've got a higher high, but it's actually a lower level down in this log scale. So numerically, it's much higher. Well, sorry, it's much lower than over here, if that makes sense. So again, that's another interesting factor. But kind of the problem that people are having is that they, with this log curve, it feels unsatisfied because it doesn't reach the top. It doesn't reach the top over here. Now, if we're going to say, oh, it's bullish and 2013's going to play out, it means that, hey, we're going to head up here. Okay, that's a reasonable assumption to make with a 2013 prediction, which means that you're talking about 140, maybe 150 Bitcoin if that does play out. So that's the kind of bull version of what could happen. But here's the thing that concerns me, which is this: if you look back, it doesn't really drop below it at any point. There are occasions like here where it does, but this is actually quite a significant drop out of essentially the channel or the bottom of the log curve. And I couldn't find a good way of explaining it until I did this. So let's just grab the bar patterns. Let's do that. Actually, let's just use a different chart. That'd be easier. Right, so if making a mess of it. So if I just grab the no. So if I just grab from here to, let's go all the way over here. Now, if you imagine that this hadn't happened, like this COVID dip hadn't happened, you can then just sort of, as an example, put that there. And what that kind of shows is that there's actually, if this hadn't happened, now I know it wouldn't play out exactly, but there's a likely chance that, hey, we would have actually reached the top of that logarithmic expansion. And what is fairly common is if we do have something like this, and when I say fairly common, I mean when it's used in other examples, in other things like statistical analysis, you would say that this is an abnormal event or an error or a data error. Let's see if I can move this without it jolting around everywhere. So it is entirely possible that this would have played out. Now, we know this happened because that is what happened. However, if you were to take another statistical tool that's sometimes used is where you take the area under graphs, And you can say that, and if you knew how to do integration, and I haven't done it for a long time, you take the area under the graph, under this entire yellow section, and you take the area that's under the section that actually played out, and then you take one away from the other, which would give you the area in this space here, which is a space in between. Now that space in between is kind of like a gap that's missing, and excuse me, and the gap that's missing here could be what is the correction over here. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if this is the case, then what we're seeing all the way over here is that it is a reaction to what's happened over here. In other words, this would have played out under normal circumstances, but because this happened, the remainder is being picked up over here in this section. Because what we'd expect to see if this log had played out as in yellow, is we'd expect to see it head down towards this section, but it's not doing that, and it wouldn't do that here, or it looks like it was going to do that here, but then it didn't. Then it started to head up, back up to the top, which means what? Well, it means that it could be that, as I'm saying, that the remainder that would have been in here is now being accounted for, and this section here is just a correction for this dip. So where can it go? Well, the answer is, I don't know. It could keep going up higher, in which case it could still be part of a correction. But I don't think it's likely that it's going to head all the way up to this top now. I think it's more than likely to maybe hit this section here before heading back down. But yeah, who knows? Yeah, just let me know what you think, and yeah, happy trading.